So what is a VPC and how can you use it exactly? Well, a VPC is a logically isolated network in the AWS cloud. In order for me to simplify this, think of a VPC as the first subnet, the primary subnet, the master subnet. It is the big subnet that you can then use to segment and create smaller subnets within. But it is that bubble, it is that wrapper that contains all of your environment. It is where you're going to be deploying your resources and your instances. It's where you're going to be configuring everything. So it's that logical, isolated network on the AWS cloud that is yours to use and configure as you see fit. It's a very powerful tool. It gives you control of network architecture. And what I mean by control of network architecture is you can take your VPC and you can divide it into smaller subnets. And each subnet might be used to serve a purpose. You might have one maybe for just web servers. You might have one for the public IP address, a DMZ maybe. There's a lot of different ways whereby you can control the network architecture, where you can build it the way you want. Think of this as taking everything that you've done on premises over the years, applying the same disciplines, everything that you've learned, except you're doing it virtually. So this is the only thing that changes. Otherwise, you have all the flexibility, all the capabilities of doing the same thing. It also has enhanced security. Now, by enhanced security, I mean that you have access to security groups, and security groups are applied against resources. Resources can be things like instances, EC2 instances, aka virtual machines. They can be things like elastic load balancers. So you can apply the security group against that particular resource. And you also have access to NACLs, network access control lists, to be able to filter down and control what's coming in and what's going out. And you're doing that at the subnet level. So you have enhanced security with VPC. You also have the ability to inter-network with other organizations. VPC is really cool in that if you're a consultant, or maybe you are an organization that just acquired another organization, and that other organization also has an Amazon presence, what you can do with virtual private cloud is something called a VPC peering, and we'll talk about that, where you can connect two VPCs together and you're able to control or have access to the resources in both based on the security that you put in place. So you have the ability to inter-network with other organizations using VPC peering. You also have the ability to do elastic IP addresses, aka public IP addresses. So you can assign your instances public IP addresses by acquiring them and assigning them to the particular instance very easily, and I'll show you how you can do that as well. You have the ability to enable hybrid cloud. Now, hybrid cloud is anything that is two clouds that interconnect, right? Any site-to-site VPN is considered a hybrid cloud. Now, what VPC allows you to do is to connect, for example, your on-premises environment with your VPC on Amazon. It allows you to connect maybe another VPC on Amazon to VPC on Amazon. So anytime you're connecting those, you have the ability to do hybrid cloud, especially with VPN capabilities in the middle. So you have that as well. With VPC, you also get access to single tenant dedicated server hardware. Now, what that means is typically when you're going to public cloud infrastructure as a service, the model is shared infrastructure. So you're expecting to deploy your resources, your virtual machines on a shared infrastructure. However, in some cases, you might want to have that isolation where you have control over, well, you have control from a knowledge perspective and knowing that you are the only tenant on that hardware. With a VPC, you can do that. Now, this is obviously costly and expensive, but you have the option of being the only tenant on server hardware, for example. Now, from a cost perspective, VPC itself is free. It doesn't cost you anything. However, anytime you introduce VPN connection, the VPN prices will apply. They're typically about 5 cents an hour or something. Whenever I talk about pricing during or throughout this course, just make sure to always double check, because the pricing in the cloud in general is always fluctuating. So double check always and triple check to make sure that you have access to the updated pricing. All right, so I thought it would be good to get an idea, an overview of what the architecture, a reference architecture, would look like for VPC, Virtual Private Cloud. So assuming on the right here, you have the AWS Global Infrastructure. This is the AWS large cloud, right? In order for AWS to isolate you as a tenant, they create the concept of a VPC. Now, a VPC, again, gives you the ability to deploy resources in an isolated manner. Now, where does the VPC lie on the AWS reference model? So you have the AWS Global Infrastructure, you have the networking stack, and then you have things that are like compute storage, databases that sit on top. You have your application services, and you have your deployment and automation. This is a typical AWS reference model. Now, your VPC will obviously spin out of virtual networking or the networking stack. And again, it is an isolated environment where you can deploy resources, you can architect your network by creating other subnets, etc.